Good evening, everybody. I welcome you all for the research guidance webinar series. Title today's session is about quantitative research methods. Our speaker of the session today is Dr. Ilmuddin. He is the senior lecturer of the Department of Management and Information System, Information Management, Faculty of Management and Commerce. So he is the prominent speaker around the world. Uh, he has did his PhD, majored in management science and engineering in China, and he did a Master of Science and Information System and postgraduate diploma in Information System and BBA specialized in Information System. He has published so many articles, research articles in world top ranked journals, especially Q1 journals, and he has published in papers based on Emerald Publishing Platform and Science Direct, Cogent, Sage. So he's a prominent figure, well-known figure in our country and around the world. So his teaching area on Java component technology and integrative programming and technology and computer network, and his research area is IT governance, management of IT, investment, big data, healthcare applications, and information system. Now is the time for the workshop. Dr. Ilmuddin, over to you, sir.
Okay. Very good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Dr. Riyad, for giving this nice opportunity to conduct this webinar session to our undergraduate students. So it gives me a great pleasure to deliver this session to our final year students, because they are in the process of writing their final thesis or final dissertation in their undergraduate work. So I hope that this session would be very much helpful for them to get some sort of insight and some ideas. So first of all, I welcome all the participants to join in this program. And yeah. So first of all, can you please confirm, am I audible now?
Sir, it's audible, yeah.
Okay, great. And also please confirm whether can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, great. So there are around 21 participants. Shall I continue? Shall we wait for a few seconds?
So we'll continue, sir. We are recording the session, so we can share the recording with them.
Okay, great. So as you are aware, this session is organized. I mean, this is actually a webinar series, and I hope that you have already attended two seminars, two series, if I'm not wrong. And this is the third program, I guess. And third program, the title is Quantitative Research Method. And in today's session, we are going to focus the following areas. So first, I'm going to introduce what is the research process, the typical research process. And then we will discuss about quantitative research and qualitative research strategy. Then we will move into this research design. So what are the research design? And then we will discuss about inductive versus deductive research approach. And then we will discuss some of the idea behind this theory and hypothesis. And then we will discuss the research model and hypothesis. Research model and hypothesis. And then we will discuss sampling and sampling technique. And then we will discuss the consideration in research methodology, data analysis, and research and finding. So when you write your dissertation or when you write your research papers, what are the things you have to take into account? So we will discuss. At the end, I'm going to show you for a actual research study, what are the steps involves, how you can conduct your research study, and how you can do the analysis for your data. and how you can compose your paper and you can publish your research study. It can be for your finally undergraduate works or your research paper or something. In this session outline, I missed one thing. Basically, I have included the slide, but I did not include it here. In between this research model and theory of hypothesis, I'm going to explain the theoretical framework and the conceptual framework, the difference between the theoretical framework and the conceptual framework also. Okay. So with that session outline, let me begin with this research process. Okay. In your undergraduate study, you might learn a subject called research methodology, or else you might heard about the research, the typical research steps or research activities. So basically, for a typical research work, these are the basic steps or basic activities you will involve for your research. So first, what you will do is you will identify a research problem. So let me use my annotate. Okay. First step is identification of problem. You will identify your research problem. And then after identifying your research problem, you will start to read the related text. So assume you have already identified your research problem. Then you are going to search some supported document about the identified problem. So basically, we call it review the available literature. So normally we call it literature review. For the identified problem, you will engage with your literature review. After doing this literature review, you will get some sort of idea, or else you will get something from your reading. The literature review reading, you will get something. So there, you will formulate your questions. Formulate your research question. What am I going to do? What is my research questions? So by conducting this research, what is my final target or ambitions? What am I going to do? So formulate your research questions. From the research questions, you will select an appropriate research design. You will select your suitable research design. So from the research design, we have a slide to discuss deeply about this research design. I'll introduce it a little later. From the research design, after deciding or after finalizing your research design, you will go for your data collection. Collect the relevant data. For this data collections, so you will find your audience, the target respondents to whom you are going to collect your data. Then you will develop your instrument for the data collections. It can be like a questionnaire or else online survey or else observations or anything. So you will design your instrument. Then you will use the sampling technique. So I have a slide to discuss this sampling technique also. And you will select one of the sampling technique and you will distribute your questionnaire for your respondent, and then you will collect your data. Okay. After collecting the data, after cleaning the data, after getting the accurate data set, you will do the analysis. For the data, you will do the analysis. And once you finish your analysis, data analysis, you will get the output from your data analysis, and that output should be interpreted. So interpret your results. So you will interpret your finding. So in a way, with the help of statistical parameters or statistical threshold values, you will present your findings. And when you present your finding, you will interpret it for the easiness to understand, or else to be able to understand by the reviewers and audience, the readers, you will interpret your findings. Then after interpreting your finding, you will publish your document. So publish the finding. So the publishing the document sense, you will compose your final dissertation or a thesis or a project, and you will submit it. Or else if it is a research paper, you will compose and you will submit your journal article or research paper. So this is how the research process involves. So it continues. Okay. I hope that you understood about this, the basic steps in the research process. And with that, let me move into this next slide.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So here, the previous slide, we looked at some of the steps involved in the research process. And here, especially for the documentations, the purpose of showing this slide is to make all the finally undergraduate students to get some sort of idea for your thesis writing or a dissertation writing. So when we come to this thesis writing or undergraduate dissertation writing, your entire dissertation work is classified into various chapters. So normally the chapter 1 is introduction. Chapter 1 is introduction. Chapter 2 is literature review. And the third chapter is methodology. And the fourth chapter is analysis and presentation. Results and analysis and presentation. And then findings, conclusion, recommendation, suggestions for future studies. And then discussion. And it goes. Likewise, right now I'm having the evaluation, marking scheme for undergraduate dissertation in my hand. So there are 7 chapters. So here, when you classify your entire work into 7 chapters, you have to consider some of the elements under each chapter. Okay. So before you write your introduction section, you will leave a space for your abstract or executive summary. Basically, it is the abstract. For undergraduate dissertation work, we call it abstract. So abstract sense, it is a summary work of your entire research work. Summary of your entire research work. We will summarize your abstract. There you will include your problem statement, the main objective of your research, and the methodology you have used there, and what is the research gap, what is the significance of your research work, and what are the main findings, what are the contributions. Likewise, these elements you will include under your abstract. Okay, introductions. So when you come to this introduction section, there you will include basically the purpose of your research objectives, research questions, and research gap, significance of your research work, and sometime you may introduce your the variables may be possible, or else you can omit and you can include it in third chapter. And you will include some of the chapter organizations and all the elements we will include under this introductory chapter. Then you will move into this chapter number 2, that is basically literature review. There you will focus some of the the related literature or supportive literature for your research study. There basically you will target, you have to target the variable or the concept or the construct in your research study, the supportive arguments, basically the theories behind your research work. So what are the theories behind supporting for your research work? So there basically you have to focus theories behind your research work, theoretical models, or else if you use well-established models, like say for example, in the previous study, if there is any well-established model or well-established framework, you can use those framework and models also, and you have to elaborate and how this model is supporting for your research work. What are the variables you have extracted from the well-established previously available model for your research work, and all this aspect you will explain there. So we have to deeply discuss about this literature review, and for this session only 2 hours is allocated, so I'll brief some of the basic aspect. Okay, then you will move into this methodology part. Third chapter is the methodology part. There you will focus how you have conducted your research study. So from the sample selection to data analysis, everything you have to explain here in a systematic manner. So there you will focus what is your population, what is your sample, what is your sampling frame, what is your sampling technique, and how many samples you have selected, on what basis you have selected your sample, and then who are your respondent, how did you collect your data, and on what basis, on what is the gap between your data collection waves, and how many valid sample you have received, how many total sample you have received, responses you have received from the respondent, and from the received responses, how many valid samples, and what are the reasons for rejecting the unmatching sample, responses. All the details you have to explain here. With that, you have to indicate your data analysis method and what sort of data analysis tool are you going to use, and what are the data analysis method you are going to use, and all the details you have to mention under your chapter number 3, third chapter. Okay, then the chapter number 4, results and findings. There, from the results and finding, you will use a statistical tool or statistical software to analyze your data. So you will mention, so from the analyzed data, you will present your results. So the results should be, in a way you have to present that should be eye-catching, and in a way the audience should treat easily and understand easily, and it should be informative. So there you will include tables and graphs and some figures, some statistical values, and its interpretations. Everything we will include under this chapter, results and findings. And then come to this discussion section. Chapter number 5 is the discussion section. There you will discuss about your research work, how you can discuss your research work. So in your research work, you have a research model or a conceptual framework. There you have a set of variables. When it comes to this variable, there are independent variables, dependent variable, basic structure. Sometimes you may have moderating variable or mediating variable. So you have a findings. So in your discussion section, you have to discuss how your research study is validated. In a sense, how this particular research study is deviating or supporting from the previous study. If there is any deviations, if there is any new finding, so we have to present it. Or else, if there is any similarity you are finding with the previously available finding, we have to present that also. And here, the discussion section or chapter, you have to mention your research study is how impactful your research study from the previously available literature or previously available research finding, how impactful your research study. What are the novel thing your research study brought? What are the significant your research study brought? So those aspects you can explain under this discussion section also. Under this discussion section, sometime you may include the implications, suggestion implications. So in the suggestion and implications, you have to write your suggestion and implications from the theoretical perspective. You can suggest the theoretical implications. From the managerial perspective, you can write your managerial implications. So likewise, how your research study is supporting for the previously available literature or previously available theories. You have to write your theoretical implications. Or else, if your study is for, is supporting for the industry or a business firm, you can write from the managerial implications. How your research study is support for the existing, industry practices. How the managers can take decisions like in future to run this business organization or industry or any industrial practice. How your research study is supporting for the managers, those who are taking the business decision, and they can consider this kind of finding for the future decision making or industrial practice. So in those aspects, you can write your managerial implications. So you can include under the chapter number 5 discussion, there you can include the implication or a suggestion part also you can include. Then you will write with your conclusions. There you can under the conclusion you can summarize your research study, and then you will include some of the limitation and future research avenue also. What are the future prospects available in this particular research domain? There you can include all the limitations when you get involved in this research work. What are the limitations or shortcomings you have faced, and you can include what are the future prospect or future avenues in this particular research domain. And then you will write your acknowledgement and bibliography or references also. Okay, basically this is how you can you can have your chapters for your dissertation or a thesis work. What the idea?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So let's move to this the remaining slide. So we are running out of time. Let's come to this quantitative versus qualitative research study. Okay, we will focus about what are the difference between qualitative and quantitative research study. Basically, the session is the given title is quantitative research methods. So our focus is going to be on the quantitative basis only. We are not going to touch the qualitative one, because if we are discussing the qualitative aspect, the time is not enough for us. So we will focus some of the quantitative aspect only. Okay. So first we will understand what are the difference between qualitative and quantitative one. So the term itself has the meaning qualitative one. If it is a qualitative one, the aim of qualitative analysis is just to describe some phenomenon. The qualitative basis, they will describe it, or in a narrative format, they will write it. But in case of quantitative one, in quantitative research, we classify features, count them, and construct statistical models in an attempt to explain what is observed. Basically, in the quantitative research study, you will quantify it in a numerical basis. You will quantify it. You will follow the theories. You will construct a model. You will hypothesize the relationship between the construct or variables, and then you will statistically analyze it by collecting the data. Then you will come to a finding and conclusion. So basically, this is the quantitative study. In case of a qualitative one, the design appears as the study reveals. So basically, is just talk about the qualitative aspect of an research domain. But in case of a quantitative one, all aspects of the study are carefully designed before data is collected. So in the quantitative one, you have to systematically organize and systematically design your research work in the quantitative aspect. Okay. In the qualitative aspect, researcher is the data gathering instrument. So in the qualitative one, the actual researcher, he is involving in the qualitative data collection method. So he will go and meet the the respondents. He will ask the question orally, or else he can record the responses from the respondents, and they will after collecting all the responses from the respondent, he will summarize it and he will write it as a proposition or a some of the opinion or something. So this is the qualitative approach. But in case of quantitative approach, researchers use tools like questionnaires, some statistical package, statistical tools, so anything to analyze the data and to collect and to analyze the data. Researchers use the tools. So in the qualitative one, data is in the form of words. So as I mentioned earlier, interviews and pictures, audios, object, artifact. So these are some of the data sources the qualitative researchers can collect the data. But in case of quantitative one, data is in the form of numbers and statistics. So basically, you are having numbers or statistic are the quantitative data. So for example, if it is a number, mean the respondent's answers. You can use the coding to convert that respondent responses into number value. If it is a statistic, assume for a secondary data like central bank report statistics, annual report statistics. So these are in the statistic form. So basically, data are in a number or a statistic form for a quantitative approach, quantitative research. Then the qualitative data is more rich, time consuming, and less able to be generalizable. So in the aspect of the qualitative data, it is more accurate data. The respondents respondents opinion, respondents ideas, respondent suggestions. So they are revealing more informative, accurate information. So it is more rich, data is more rich, and it is time consuming in a sense to collect, to meet, to get the approval or to get the permission from this targeted respondent and approaching them and collecting data. So it will take time, and the qualitative findings are less able to generalizable. So it is very difficult to generalize the qualitative findings. But in case of quantitative one, quantitative data is more efficient, able to test hypotheses, but may miss contextual data. In a sense, you can easily collect the quantitative data. You can easily design your research study for the quantitative one, and you can develop or you can form the hypothesis between the variables or construct, and you can do the analysis and you can validate your hypothesis also. So this is how you can distinguish or you can differentiate the qualitative one and the quantitative one. But for empirical studies, most of our final year students they are doing the quantitative research approach, because those people are, our students are dealing with data. Either it can be a primary data or a secondary data. They are doing the quantitative research work. Okay. So let's move to this next slide. Okay, the quantitative research basically attempt to explain the phenomena by collecting and analyzing the numerical data, the number values, and data is collected always numerical and analyzed using a statistical package in the quantitative one. If there are no numbers involved in the quantitative, then it is not a quantitative research study. Often statistical tests are applied to detect or confirm. So basically in the quantitative research approach, we will apply the statistics to detect or confirm your or to validate your findings. Proposed purpose is to get clear-cut, precise, and accurate results, exactly reflecting the situation under the study. So in the quantitative research study, you can clearly present your finding. More accurately, you can present your finding. More precisely, you can present your finding. Questionnaire is the one of the popular tool for quantitative research study, because by using the questionnaire, you can easily collect the data from the respondent. So basically, these are some of the aspect comes under this quantitative research work. Okay, so quantitative data I have already explained. So due to this time constraint, I'm going to the data source, for the quantitative research work, the data source you can use the surveys and observations and secondary data, as I mentioned earlier, the government data set, government reports or annual reports or something statistic you can use, and surveys by conducting surveys like online surveys or the physical surveys or any other by using some other data helping people. You can collect the data by using the surveys, questionnaires, and observation also. There are possible to collect this data and you can do the analysis. Analysis technique include hypothesis testing, correlation, cluster analysis, and so on. There are various types of analysis there under the quantitative data analysis. Okay, I have a slide to discuss some of the quantitative analysis also. Okay, let's come to this research design. Okay, now we looked at some of the aspects comes under this qualitative and quantitative one, and you understood what is the research process also, what are the steps or what are the activities involved in the basic research activity. Now we will discuss the research design. So the research design can be classified into these categories like analytical research, descriptive research, and experimental research. Okay, let's come to this analytical research. If it is analytical research, there are three categories. One is review, the second one is philosophical, and the third one is historical. So basically, they have classified the analytical research into three categories: reviews, philosophical, and historical. And here, under the reviews, one more category like meta-analysis. So systematic literature review or a meta-analysis, something. So I have a slide to discuss. Okay. The second one, descriptive statistics. There you see basically two categories are there: case study analysis and survey study. The survey study, under the survey study, they have classified this survey study into three categories: cross-sectional survey, longitudinal survey, and the correlational survey. So correlation also you can conduct under the survey study. Okay, come to this experimental research. So pre-design, quasi-design, true design, and statistical design. So experimental research can be classified in this way. Okay, so first there is no classic like a pre-design. After that quasi-design and a true design and the statistical design. Okay, let's come to this what is analytical research. So under the analytical research, you see these categories. Reviews are there, philosophical and historical. Reviews mean basically review something. In a critical account of present understanding. So, the review. For a situation or for things or for anything, for any document, the evaluator, he can review by his own experience or own knowledge. He can write his review. A critical account, critical opinion, critical viewpoint, we may say, critical viewpoint or critical account for present understanding. For his understanding, he can review it. So under this meta-analysis, also the quantitative method for review. So here you see the meta-analysis. So systematically they are collecting some basic fact and figures from the previously available finding, and systematically they are presenting. So this is also kind of research work, meta-analysis or systematic literature review. Okay, these are the reviews. And the historical research. So basically the historical research means accessing both primary, already available, and secondary sources to document past event. Okay, historical study means the previously took place incidents or any events. So they are collecting some of the evidences of witnesses. So, and after that, from that evidence and witnesses, they are writing a research work. So basically, from the social science, they are having many historical research work and philosophical research work. So when it comes to this philosophical research work, organizing existing evidence into a comprehensive theoretical model. So they are systematically organizing, collecting and organizing existing evidences into a comprehensive theoretical model. This is also basically from the social science research. They are using philosophical research also. So analytical research, we are not going to, our students are not going to use very much. So our people are going to use the descriptive studies, the middle one, descriptive research work. Okay. So now we will discuss what are the descriptive studies. Under the descriptive statistic, the case study also one type, like basically the case study, accumulation of detailed information from an individual. So any object or any phenomenon. Okay, case study. So when it comes to this case study, so like some past incidents, past cases, the way the case was handled, the way the case was solved it out. So the lesson learned from this case. So what are the new things learned from this case? Each and every case may reveal some important insight, some prospect, some of the suggestions. So systematically analyzing, collecting and analyzing and presenting the particular case, or comparing 2 or 3 cases in a similar context, if there is any similar kind of cases, and compare those case nature and its solutions, its new things, any innovation from that case, how these cases were handled, how these cases can be solution for future similar cases. So likewise, we are presenting or we are conducting case study. Okay, surveys. When it comes to the survey kind of research, there you see the survey research can be classified into 3 categories. One is a cross-sectional, longitudinal, and correlational. Okay. Now we'll come to this surveys. So most of our students are involving in the survey studies. So there you people are involving cross-sectional surveys. Basically, the cross-sectional surveys focuses. It is a status of a various group at a given point of time. At a time they are collecting the data and they are analyzing the data and presenting the finding. So cross-sectional. So at a time. And longitudinal mean it is a status of a given group at various point in time. In a sense, so they are observing this particular phenomenon from various time period, like last year performance, last 5 years performance, last 10 years performance, the current performance. Likewise, they are collecting the data. Last 10-year data they are collecting. Last 5 years data they are collecting. And they are doing the analysis and they are presenting. So longitudinal. And correlational. So in the correlation study, basically, they are testing the variables. In their research model, they will they have various variable like independent, dependent variables, and they are testing the relationship or correlation between these variables. So this is called the correlational survey study. So now you can understand. So the surveys can be in 3 types. One is cross-sectional, longitudinal, and correlationals. Most of our finalist students are they are involving in the empirical study, so they are involving in the correlational studies. Okay, so with that, let's bring you all to this inductive and deductive research approach. Okay, now we have some sort of idea about your research work. Now come to this inductive and deductive research. When you start your research work, you have to keep in mind in which approach am I going to select for my research work. Okay, so first, sometime you may decide, like, you may have the better idea about your research work. You may observe something. You may observe something. From the observations, you have some sort of ideas, pattern. We call it pattern. Then from the pattern, you can hypothesize. You have some assumptions, tentative assumption or hypothesis assumptions. Then you will go for a theory. If so, this is the inductive research approach. In a sense, inductive research begin with a research questions. You may have your research question in your mind, and the data collections. From this data collection, you will have a empirical data, and then you will analyze the data. Then you will validate your hypothesis, and then you will go for a theory. If so, it is called inductive research approach. Inductive research begin with the research questions and the collection of empirical data, which are used to generate hypothesis and theory. Okay, this is the inductive approach. Sometime you may find some theories, like theory sense, let's say the motivational theories. In a management background, you might heard about the motivational theories or leadership theories, or some organizational aspect. You may heard about the performance related theories or dynamic capacity theory. So in the organization aspect, so there are already developed theories are there, already defined theories are there. You may heard about these theories, and from the theory you may come to this hypothesis. From the theory you may have your assumptions. Hypothesis we call assumptions. Then from the hypothesis you come to these observations. Then you will confirm your observation by doing the analysis. So deductive research approach usually begin with a theory driven hypothesis which guide the data collection and analysis. So here you see, this is the backward approach. Theory, from the theory you are going for a confirmations. Here from the observation you are going for a theory. So if so, it is inductive research approach. And if you are starting with your theory and confirm your hypothesis, this is called deductive research approach. Okay, so okay, now with this idea, with this brief idea, let me bring you all to this theory and hypothesis. Now we will understand what is theory and what is hypothesis. Basically, theory means it is already defined, it is already available. This theory is developed by confirming a research finding. Already they have conducted a research study. From that research study, they found something. From the finding, they have developed a theory. Say, for example, the motivational theory. Assume that XY theory. And they found the relationship between two variables. And then they define this motivational theory. So there, you see, they have already systematically conducted a research study. From the research study, they found and they validated their hypothesis and they developed the theories. All the available theories in practice, it is already validated and it is from the previously available studies. Okay. And hypothesis mean your assumptions hypothesize two variables two phenomenon, you are assuming one is impacting on another. Assume X is impacting or X is correlate with Y. X can be one variable, Y can be another variable. X is correlated with Y. X is impacting on Z. So this is your assumptions. This is your assumptions. Okay. Theory means a belief or assumption about how things relate to each other. And a theory establishes cause and effect relationship between variables with the purpose of explaining and predicting phenomena for a situation based on inductive research. Theory is based on inductive reasoning. Okay. Hypothesis, a belief, a prediction of a final outcome of the research. Hypothesis. So basically, in your research study, you are having what you call variables or construct. From this construct, you assume that this particular construct will impact on another variable. So at the end of your research study, you will predict, or you will assume, or you will expect these two variables can be correlated or impacting or any kind of relationship. So hypothesis, a concrete specific statement about the relationship between phenomena. So basically the hypothesis means it's a kind of statement or assumption about the relationship between a phenomena. Basically the hypothesis based on the deductive reasoning. It is based on deductive reasoning. So now you can understand the theory and the hypothesis. Theory is already developed one, and it is already systematically validated, and it is already hypothesized, and they have developed the theory. But hypotheses are for your research study, for a phenomenon, for a variable, or for variables, you are having your own belief or a assumption, or you are expecting something from the variables. One will impact on another, or one will correlate with another. So likewise, it is your assumption. Simply you can define the theory and hypothesis. Got the idea? Got the idea? Have you got the idea?
Yes, sir.
Great. So with that, let me move into this next slide. Okay, this is very much important. Theoretical framework and the conceptual framework. Most of the time, people may think that these both are same, but it's look like same, but there are differences behind these two terminologies, theoretical framework and the conceptual framework. Okay, now we are going to discuss about theoretical framework and the conceptual framework. Okay, theoretical framework mean what? I will brief about this theoretical framework. Theoretical framework mean it is basically based on the theory, previously available theories. So as the term itself has the meaning, theory, theoretical framework, it is based for your research work, you are based, or you are focusing, or you are relying on some theories. Assume if it is a leadership kind of research work you have chosen, and then you have rely on some leadership related theories, leadership qualities or leadership traits or leadership related characteristic. You will focus some leadership related theories. If it is an organization aspect, in my case, I'm highly working on this IT investments. There, I'm focusing on IT investment related, let's say these theories, the process theory. I'm focusing for my research work, process theory and dynamic capability theory, and some organizational managerial decision making related theories. So I'm focusing. So basically for your research study, if you follow or if you base or if you rely on any theory, this is called theoretical framework. Conceptual framework. Conceptual framework means for your research study, you have a variable. And for those variable, you may expect some of the association or some of the relationship. So when you show these variables, associations, its relationship in a way, this is called conceptual framework. Okay. Now, briefly, I have defined what is a theoretical framework and what is conceptual framework. Let's come to points by each point. Okay. So here, the theoretical framework, a point of focus for attacking the unknown in a specific area. In a sense, you are going to start your research work there you have variables, and for that variable, which these variable are having some sort of relationship with the previously available theories. So theoretical framework. But in case of conceptual framework, concepts are placed within a logical sequential design. So there you will show what are your independent variable, what are your dependent variable, is there any mediating variable or moderation variables, how your independent variable are connected with the mediator or a moderator, or dependent variable. So you will show all the arrows, linkage or connections and all the components. So this is called conceptual framework. You are conceptualizing your research work. So when you look at, when anyone, any reader, any reviewer, anyone from outside your research, when he look at your conceptual framework, he will get the basic idea. These are the independent variable for this research study. This is the dependent variable for this research study. This is the mediating variable. This is the moderating variable. The independent variable, this is how it is connected. These are the components. Likewise, he will conceptualize about your research work. So conceptual framework. And to explain the relationship of two or more variables. So in this theoretical framework, for your selected variable or selected construct, you use this theoretical framework to show or to give some sort of evidence. So this particular construct or a variable is supporting for the previously available theory. Assume that I have a research model. In that research model, I have a variable called trust. Variable called trust. So this trust is previously available. The theory is supporting or telling something about this trust. So I am getting some supportive points from that previously available theory. So trust, or else website usability or security, privacy, and anything. So if I have any number of variable, and for that selected variable, there may be previously developed theories may be there. So I have to quote, or I have to get the arguments or points, supportive points from that previously available theories. Okay. But the conceptual framework, specific concept and propositions derived from the empirical observation. So here you are going to test this model. I mean, from this testing this model, you are going to you have a proposition or a assumption. So this variable is associated with particular this variable. Likewise, we have assumptions. Here, the theoretical framework tests theories and to stimulate research work. But in case of conceptual framework, to make research finding meaningful and generalizable. So you are having your conceptual framework to make your research finding meaningful and generalizable. In a sense, if it is a independent variable, that should be independent variable. Independent variable cannot be a dependent variable. If it is a dependent variable, that should be a dependent variable. That cannot be a independent variable. If it is a moderating one, that should be moderating variable. So likewise, you are perfectly giving organizing or arranging this variable. So you are giving the conceptual. It establishes connection between observation and fact, basically the theoretical framework. But in case of conceptual framework, to stimulate research and the extension of knowledge by providing both direction and input. So you are showing the association or a link or a connection in between or among variables derived from specific concept and proposition that are induced and deduced. From the induced or deduced, I mean the previously observations here, inductive and deductive, the theories are developed. But here the conceptual framework to encourage theory development that is useful to practice. So after conducting your research work, sometime from your finding, you may develop some theories. So that is also possible. Okay. Now you see, the theoretical framework is a collection of existing theories. The theoretical framework is a collection of existing theories, models, and framework that provide a foundation of core knowledge from which you can build a research study. For this reason, it is usually presented fairly early within the literature review section of your dissertation, thesis, or a research paper. So when you when you write your theoretical framework, you will include in your chapter number 2, basically in your literature review section. So in that literature review section, what I'm going to do is you are going to write this theoretical framework. I mean, what are the available theory? What are the available research variables or construct in your study? For that research variables or construct, you are writing you are writing this theoretical framework by connecting existing theories or any models or any framework. So you might heard about well-established models like information system area. There are UTAT model and TEM model, technology exception models, and UTAT models, and information system success model. So these are some of the well-established models available previously. So we are connecting. If our research work is have the similar kind of variable, so we have to follow that well-established model or framework, and then we have to write it. Our literature part or second literature review part by connecting the available framework and well-established model, because we have the same kind of variable in our research study. Okay. But the conceptual framework is a typically visual representation of the expected relationship and the connection between construct and variable. So, as I mentioned earlier, the conceptual framework is a visual representation of your variables and its connection, possible connection between the construct or a variable. Okay. Conceptual framework visualizes how the researcher views and organizes the various concept and variable within your study work. So it is his own idea. Basically, you see, someone has the independent variable, and this independent his viewpoint or his idea is these are the number of independent variable. The similar kind of study can be conceptualized by another person. There can be different type of independent variable in the similar context. So it is his own visualizations or his own understanding. So basically the conceptual framework visualizes how the researcher views and organizes the various concept and variable within their research study. This is typically based on aspect drawn from the theoretical framework. So there is a relationship between these two. Basically, if anyone wants to decide his variable, and these variables has some sort of relationship with the theoretical framework, because each and every variable it has some it can be derived from the previously developed theories. So as I mentioned earlier, so here let's say in my case, see here, this is the conceptual framework. See here, this is my actual research work. See, sensing, coordinating, learning, integrating, reconfiguring. So these are some of the components comes under dynamic capability theory. These are the components comes under dynamic capability theory. So this is actually my conceptual framework or research model, but the variables or the components of this model is connected with the theory, previously developed theory. You got my point? In the turbulent environment, there you see two different aspects are there: market turbulence, the technological turbulence. So for the turbulent environment, there are theories, and basically I am having the variable, but it is connected with the previously available theories. So here you see, yeah. Conceptual framework visualizes how the researcher views and organizes the various concept and variable within the research study. This is typically based on aspect drawn from the theoretical framework. So there is a relationship between these two. Yes, exactly. The conceptual framework and the theoretical framework has the connections, relationship, but these two are different. It has some similarities, but these two are different. Okay. Conceptual framework are used to visualize the phenomenon, to visualize the potential causal relationship and pathways that the researcher expected to find based on their understanding of both the theoretical literature and the existing empirical research. And conceptual framework often make use of different shapes, lines, arrows, to visualize the connection and the relationship between different components or a different variable. So here you see, for a conceptual framework, I'm using different notations like arrow marks, notations to indicate my variables, different notations, to components, different notations. To connect this variable, I am having this arrow mark, and to show this what I call this already established and already validated hypothesis, I'm showing dotted arrow mark. So these are some of the notation, shape, and line to show my model, my research model. Conceptual framework often make use of different shape, lines, arrows to visualize the connection and the relationship between different component or a variable. The theoretical framework is used to lay down a foundation of theory on which your study will be built, whereas the conceptual framework visualizes what you anticipate the relation between concept, construct, and variable may be. So you can understand theoretical framework mean previously available theories, and conceptual framework mean to show or to visualize your entire research work. It has some shape, lines, and arrows to show your variables and model. Therefore, the conceptual framework is often used to develop research question and hypothesis. So the conceptual framework are used to develop your research question and hypothesis. So here you see in the conceptual framework, I'm having my hypothesis. So here you see this is a conceptual framework, and there I am having variables, and my variables are connected with other variables, and it has the notations, and I have a components, and see, for the previously validated hypothesis, I'm showing in a different notations, and the conceptual framework is also called as research model. Sometime you may get, or you may come across some documents or some other papers or any other document. There you can have a term called research model, but research model refers the conceptual framework of that particular study. Okay, here you see, when you develop this research model or a conceptual framework, you have to take into account some of the aspect, like avoid to hypothesize already established relationship. This is, in my case, this is, if two variables already validated, or in the previously available studies, those two variables already highly validated, or if it is a common thing, you don't need to hypothesize because it is already available. The finding is already available, so you don't need to rewind it. So, and limit your number of hypotheses and relationship among the construct. So for your research study, you have to limit your number of hypotheses and relationship. So don't go for many hypotheses and many relationship. So when you go for many relationship and many hypotheses, it is your research study. Sometime, the finding cannot be, let's say, cannot be like cannot be easily understandable by the readers. So too many research, hypotheses, and it is difficult you to find the supporting literatures. It is difficult you to find the, expected output, and so keep it in a short manner. Like let's say, like 5 to 7 hypotheses, or around 5 or 6 hypotheses, relationship enough. Cite most relevant, recent, and supporting literature evidences for your research hypothesis. So when you select this variable, you have to take into account, you have to search most relevant, most recent, and supporting literature for your hypothesis. So here, assume that in my case, IT-enabled dynamic capabilities and business process agility. So for these two construct or two variable, I have to find most relevant, latest, and supportive hypothesis. How these two variables are impacting. I am assuming IT-enabled dynamic capability is impacting on business process agility. And in my second hypothesis is IT-enabled dynamic capability is impacting on firm innovative capability. So I have to find most relevant, recent, and supportive literature. And for other remaining variable also, I have to find the same. Okay. So basically here, you can get the idea about this concept, the difference between theoretical framework and the conceptual framework, and you can get some sort of idea about in the conceptual framework what are variables, hypothesis, and relationship and its notations. Okay, got the idea? Got the idea? Hello? Hello?
Yes, Professor. Yes, Doctor. Yeah, you can continue. We can
Okay. Okay. So let's move into this next slide. Okay. So here, the population and sample. Now, assume we have designed our research model or a conceptual framework, and we have hypothesis, and we have everything. Now, the population and sample. Now we will talk about some of the aspect comes under this population and sample. So the sampling is very much important, and before sampling, you must know about your populations, and after identifying this population, you can go for with the sample. There you see the populations. You can target any populations. So normally the population refers like for your research work, the available respondent, the whole available respondent. So like say for example, the undergraduates. So you are going to conduct a survey among the undergraduates. So your population is all the undergraduates. So based on the sampling technique, you can narrow down. I mean, this what I call this population size can be, you can narrow down. Assume the undergraduates, let's say you are going to target a sample within Southeastern University. Assume, if so, your population is Southeastern undergraduates, or else you are going to conduct a survey from by collecting the sample from all universities in Sri Lanka. If so, all the undergraduates in Sri Lankan universities. So based on your sampling technique or sampling approach, the population can be differ. So if you target, if you frame within a particular institute or within a particular region or within a particular country, so based on that frame, the population can be differ. Okay. So here you see the sample mean from the populations. You are selecting a few subject. So basically, population sample mean, these are some of the representative from the populations. Some of the individual or some of the representative from the populations. Okay. Now you see population is the bigger one, and from the population you are selecting a few subject or few representative. So this is called sample. Okay. Now come to this. Yeah. Here you see the target populations, and from these target populations you are selecting a few subject called sample. So effective sampling produces n, this one, small n sample, which is representative of a target populations. This is the entire population community. From that population community, you are selecting a few members, or few representative, or few subject. Okay. Okay, these are some of the sampling technique. See, so the sampling technique. So the sampling technique can be classified into two categories. One is probabilistic sampling, and the second one is non-probabilistic sampling. Under the probabilistic sampling, stratified sampling, random sampling, systematic sampling, and cluster sampling. So here the probabilistic term. So any kind of probability is there. Any kind of probability is going to be applied in this sampling method. Non-probabilistic sampling, snowball sampling, convenient sampling, judgmental sampling, quota sampling. Okay, now we will discuss one by one briefly. The probability sampling. You might heard about, most of the time you people are using this random simple random sampling. So simple random sampling means from the populations. Now you have a populations. So each and every element or each and every representative or individual in that population have the chance to be selected as a sample. So simple random sampling. In this case, each individual is chosen entirely by chance, and each member of this population has an equal chance to be selected as a sample. So if so, this is called simple random sampling. Okay, I have a slide to show you a little later. I'll show that slide. So from the picture, you can easily understand. Here is a slide. Okay. First, we will look at this, the definitions. The systematic sampling. Systematic sampling. In a systematic sampling, see, to select the sample, systematic selecting. So individuals are selected at a regular interval. So systematically. So in a regular intervals, assume that you have 10 members. From the 10 members, you are going to select, sorry, you have 100 members. From the 100 members, you are going to select 10 members. So a regular interval, you are selecting the people. I mean the 10%. You will assign the number 1 to 100, and each 10th member will be selected. So you will get 10 members. So individuals are selected at a regular intervals from the sampling frame. The intervals are chosen to ensure an adequate sample size. So for example, here, for example, if you wanted a sample size of 100 from a population of 1,000, select every 10th member from the sample. So when you divide your samples into total population, you will get the value. From that value, each member can be selected as a sample. Okay. Stratified sampling. In this stratified sampling, the population is first divided into subgroups. Subgroup, we call it strata, who all share a similar characteristic. So from the populations, we are going to group them based on their characteristics, similar kind of characteristics. Then from that characteristic subgroup, we are going to select the sample. It is used when we might reasonably expect the measurement of the interest to vary between the different subgroup, and we want to ensure representation from the subgroups. So we are expecting from the each and every subgroup, we need a representative. So that time, so we can use this stratified sampling. Cluster sampling. In a cluster sampling, subgroup of population are used as the sampling unit rather than individuals. So subgroup of populations are used as the sampling unit. The population is divided into subgroup known as clusters, which are randomly selected to be included in the study. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you. Yeah, this is the slide. Cluster sampling. We looked at this cluster sampling. See, the probability sampling, the simple random sampling uses, so each one has the chance to be selected as a sample. So we can be selected out of 12 members. We can select randomly. We can select 4 members. In the systematic sampling, as I mentioned earlier, there are 12 members, and in the 12 members, so we are selecting the people. I mean, let's say odd numbers. Let's say after two people, 2, 5, after 2 people, 8 and 11. So these are the 4 members are selected. So systematically we are selecting. Okay, stratified sampling. In the stratified sampling, what we are doing is the entire population is divided into subgroup based on their characteristic or based on their similarities. So these all are one group. These all are one group. This is one group. This is one group. From this one group, we are selecting representation. I mean, from this subgroup, we are selecting representative. So from the first group, one is selected. Second group, one representative is selected. Third group, another representative is selected. Fourth group also, one representative is selected. But cluster sampling, what are we going to do is we are grouping the entire population into various clusters, and from the cluster, I mean, inside that cluster itself, we are selecting the members. See, so 1 and 2 is one group, 3 and 4 is another group, 5 and 6 is another group, 7 and 8 is another group, 9, 10, one group, 11, 12, one group. For the sampling, what are we going to do is we are selecting this group, 5 and 6, one representation, and 11 and 12, another representations. 1 minute, I'm having the call. Shall I continue? Shall I continue?
Yes, sir. Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay. So now here you see the cluster sampling. Entire population is divided into various clusters. From the cluster itself, they are selecting clusters as a sample. Okay. And now you see non-probabilistic sampling. Under the non-probabilistic sampling, there are four different techniques. First is convenience sampling. Most of the time, we people are using this convenience sampling based on our convenience. We are selecting the sample. Quarter sampling. In the quarter sampling, this method of sampling is often used by market researchers. Interviews are given a quarter of subject of a specified type of attempt to recruit. So in a quarter basis, we are selecting. So from the available population, quarter basis on any kind of criteria or any kind of basis, we are selecting the quarter sampling. Judgment sampling or purposive sampling, there you see researcher may also known as selective or subjective sampling. This technique rely on the judgment of a researcher when choosing who to be answer, to whom to be participate in the research study. So purposively, we are selecting the sample. Researcher may indirectly choose a representative sample their need. So specifically approach individuals with certain characteristics. So the researcher is purposefully targeting some respondent to be answered, because sometimes the researcher may expect that this particular person has much knowledge, or this particular person has much experience, or this particular person may reveal the real fact. So likewise, purposefully selecting the respondent. Snowball sampling. Basically, the snowball sampling method, in the snowball sampling, sometime for a research study, it is very difficult to reach the people. So they are not reveal who are the users or who are having this kind of habits or something. So in that case, the snowball sampling means first identify one person, and that particular person may have the relationship or may know the related people. So we will approach through this person, we will approach the rest of the people, and those people may know some other people. So likewise, we are selecting the respondents. So for example, let's say for the truck users, the people are reluctant to reveal they are the actual truck users. So what we can do is, when we find a person and he may know some similar kind of characters, I mean similar kind of habits people, and when we reach those people, they will show us some other truck users. Likewise, we may collect the respondent. Okay, here you see the convenience sampling. Normally we are collecting based on our convenience, we are selecting the sample. Purposefully, we are selecting some sample. The researcher decide these are the people, they can reveal much informative information. So we are selecting the purpose sampling. Snowball sampling, from one person to we are selecting other related people. And here also that which one? Judgment sampling, from the given based on some criteria or a quota, we are selecting the sample, quota sampling. So these are some of the what you call sampling technique. So there are different types of sampling: probability sampling, non-probability sampling. And when you design your research work, you have to carefully select your sample size, and it is better for your research work, and it is highly dependent for your final output also. So you have to make sure your type of research study and your respondent, and how are you going to use this respondent to collect your data, and whether it is easy for you to approach them, whether easy for you to collect the data within a given time period. So by considering all these factors, we have to select the accurate and correct sampling method also. So this is now bulk sampling. Okay. So far we looked at some of the aspect comes under this sampling, and now we will move into this methodology part. Okay. In your research study, in your dissertation or thesis work, when you write your methodology part, you have to pay attention on the following aspect. Like you have to decide your population, sample size, and sampling technique carefully, and the data collection procedure. And when it comes to this data collection, you have to make sure whether you are going to collect the data from the primary sources or you are going to collect the data from the secondary sources. If it is a primary sources like the first candidate or in first hand, you are collecting the data from the respondent. So you have to make sure who are your respondent, and you have to think whether you have a sufficient respondent to collect your data. Assume that if you are targeting the respondent as CEOs, the company CEOs, superior people, it is difficult you to reach them because they are busy people, and they sometimes they will not reveal their company related secret information, and they are not going to participate. They are not willing to participate in surveys. So you have to decide whether you have sufficient number of respondents to collect your data, and you have to decide the data sources. Okay, when it comes to this secondary data sources, you have to take into account whether for the secondary data source, the document is available, like a central bank report or annual report or any kind of government press release or any kind of article or something. And you have to make sure that the number of, if you are targeting, longitudinal research, the number of years, 5 years, 10 years, or last 20 years, the data is available. So all the things you have to consider. And ethical clearance. So it is a must. You have to get the clearance. Like the approval or the permission from your institute or any other respondents. Like the research work should not be reveal some personal information, so some the privacy related information, and it should not clash with any other organizational rules and regulation or any other clearance. So you have to make sure all these aspects. And the variable item and sources, like for empirical kind of research, when you select your variable, you have to make sure sufficient variables, and for each variable there may be questions or items. We call it items here, and sufficient number of items are there for each variable. And what are the source you have collect this variable? So it can be previously available published papers or published research work or article or something. So you have to get that source also for your variable selections. The respondent, make sure that the respondent knowledge level, whether they are capable to answer for your questions, knowledge level. Suitability, whether they are suitable to answer your questions, your questionnaire or anything. Method of approaching them, how are you going to approach them? Are you going to visit their physical locations or physical office, or are you going to invite them in a particular place and you are going to collect the data? And or else you are going to send your questionnaire through online or post, or you are going to collect the data via telephone calls. So, or else what sort of approach? Number of ways, in a sense. So let's say you are distributing your questionnaire through online platforms or Google Form, any other online platform. In the first instance, the first wave, you have distributed your questionnaire for target audience, and you received less number of response from the target audience. In the second wave, you are going to, after some time later, let's say some weeks later, you are again sending the same questionnaire to that particular group. Those who are not responded in the previous number of ways. So until you satisfy the number of satisfied sample, or until you get the sufficient sample, you can send a number of waves to get the responses from the respondents. You have to think about it. Exclusion, in a sense, once you collect the data, I mean responses from the respondent, you have to make sure there may be invalid responses or blank records may be there. I mean questionnaires are there, so you have to exclude them. So on what basis you are going to exclude them? So you have to get the accurate or the correct strategy for that exclusion. Valid responses, out of number of responses received after exclusions, non-responses, and you have to make sure the valid responses out of 310 responses, I'm excluding 12 responses because of this non-response or irrelevant or something. So your final sample size is 298. So valid response, it's a valid response rate also you can calculate. So these are some of the aspects in the methodology part you have to take into account when you design your research study. Okay, so once you define all this, once you decide all this, the methodology part, assume you have collected your data, and for the data analysis, you have to decide the data analysis tools and softwares. So maybe for your quantitative, in a quantitative research work, there may be softwares to analyze, like let's say normally we people are using smart PLS or SPSS or some other financial modeling or some other e-views or Strata or some other softwares you can use to analyze your data. It's up to you, your ability, your experience, your skills, and you can use the handy and experienceful data analysis tool to analyze your data. And after analyze, I mean before you analyze your final data, you have to check some of the aspect like your normality check, and you have to make sure that whether your collected data is normally distributed, normality check, CMB, common method bias, and non-response bias, reliability check, validity check, all these type of the basic analysis test you have to make sure, and also make sure that your data, I mean if there is any outliers, you have to remove that outliers, and do some basic analysis like outliers, and remove that outliers, skewness test and courtesy test, and make sure that your data is normally distributed, and your data does not have any serious issues, and clean your data. I mean there are steps are there to clean your data, like remove this non-responses and invalid data records and so on. And after that, make sure that your data has no error, and it is normally distributed, and it is ready to go for a final analysis. And type of analysis in the data analysis, make sure that normally you will do this descriptive analysis, and you will test the correlation between these variables or among variables, and you may conduct this regression analysis to make sure independent variables impact on dependent variables, and regression analysis. Factor analysis, you may conduct this factor analysis, and which factors are highly form the variables, so factor analysis. And path analysis, if you are using this smart PLS, there you can find this path analysis to decide the correlations or association between these variables. Bootstrapping, to make sure this variable has the impact or significance, so bootstrapping. In hierarchical regression analysis, and likewise there are different types of analysis there, so you have to make sure what type of analysis I'm going to use for my research work. And if you are handling, or if you are having the mediation analysis, moderation analysis, there are different steps are there, so you have to follow those steps to test your variable, mediation and moderations. And mediation and moderation, there are different ways to test these mediation moderations, like there may be different approaches to validate these mediation moderations. So if possible, you have to include other options also for the mediation moderations. Robustness check, once you do this analysis, you have to do this, you have to conduct this robustness check to decide you conceptualize correctly. Your independent variables are not no longer. These are the independent variable. It does not have any other. It cannot be a dependent variable. This is the actually the independent variables. Your mediator is the mediator. It cannot treat it as a independent variable. Your moderation is the moderating variable. It cannot be treated as a dependent variable. So there are steps to analyze this the robustness check and decide your model is perfect. Okay. And once you complete this data analysis part, and then you will go to this results and finding. When you write your results and finding, present your results in an eye-catching manner and informative manner. So any readers or any outsiders, when they look at your document, they have to easily get the idea. In a way, you have to present your results. So present results in an eye-catching and informative manner. So it should be easily readable, easily understandable. So use the simple words to understand. Use appropriate terms, language. Don't use bombastic or technical words more frequently. So then they cannot able to understand your paragraph or sentences or any other findings. So keep it simple and more informative. Use appropriate figures with analysis results and values. So you can include any figures, any values or anything appropriate one. Include relevant tables to support your findings, like to give some sort of additional information. You can include the relevant tables in a relevant place with the relevant captions, table captions, and it should be the given table or figure should be properly inserted in your document or a paragraph. So when the user read, so they have to easily find the mentioned table or a figure. So everything. Interpret your results with supportive statistical threshold values, statistics and points and supportive literature. So like when you interpret your results and finding, there are threshold values. So like the validity, reliability, and some other confirmations. There are let's say multicollinearity, and for all these, there are threshold values. In the previous research study, they have validated, and there are the threshold values. So you have to mention that threshold values, and for that threshold values, your findings should be either it can be above or below, and you have to present your reasons and statistics, collect the statistic and parameters and points, supportive points and literature review support. Everything you have to provide in your results and finding sections. Okay, so these are some of the aspect we looked at under this the quantitative research study. And now, so we learned some of the aspect from the what do you call the research process to we learned some of the aspect like the quantitative qualitative approach and research design and inductive deductive theory and hypothesis and theoretical framework, conceptual framework, and the theory, the research model, variables and associations, relationship, hypothesis, everything we understood. This sampling and sampling technique and the different technique we looked at. And after that, we looked at the methodology part, how to what are the things we have to consider on this methodology part, data analysis and results and finding, everything we looked at. Now it is my duty to show you in the real demonstrations. Real demonstration mean the previously published real work, to understand all this aspect. Okay, so okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, so see here, assume I have decided my research problem, and I have went through the related literature, and I got some idea in my mind, and I have decided some variables, and I have developed my model, and everything is already done. And now I am going to start my research work by collecting the data. And for my research work, I have developed a questionnaire. So this is how I have developed my questionnaire. And this questionnaire is developed, and I used, the online platform to collect the data from the respondent. I identify my target audience. I have decided everything. And now see, so in my questionnaire, I'm collecting the basic profile information. Demographic profile information about my respondent, like the gender, age category, and highest level of educations, and monthly income, their professions. Likewise, some basic information I'm collecting from the respondent. So this is how nicely I have design my questionnaire. So when you design your questionnaire, make sure that it should be simple, and the respondents are sometimes busy and they are not willing to spend much time in answering our questionnaire. So keep in mind, you have to give very simple, more convenient, and easy to answer questions. Okay, this is how I have arranged my questions to collect the respondent demographic profile information. After that, the second section, this is section number 1, general information. Section 2, I am going to collect my research model variable related questions. There you see, I am collecting the answer and scaling it. The responses are scaled. Like if the respondent selected 1, it means strongly disagree. If he or she is selecting 2, option 2, it is disagree. The 3, neither agree or disagree. 4, agree. 5th, strongly agree. Likewise, the respondents are answering for each and every questions. So here you see, this is the variable or construct, or a the latent variable. Consumer intention to use e-banking services. So basically, this study is about the factors affecting consumer adoption in e-banking services in Sri Lanka. Okay. So now you see, this is my key variable or variable, a consumer intention to use e-banking services. Under each variable, each construct, I have set of what? Items, question items or questionnaire questions. Okay. I am using e-banking service as it fulfill my banking needs. Likewise, I have the questions. Second variable, awareness. Third variable, convenience, convenient. So likewise, for my research study, there are variable. Each variable has a number of questions, and the respondents are answering. So see my research model. So this is my research model. So what is the name we can give for this research model? Another name for this research model? Any idea? Any term for this research model? Can anyone please answer? Okay. So basically, you see, this model shows for anyone, when anyone look at this model, he can get some sort of idea. Like this particular research work has the following independent variable, and this is my dependent variable, and there are associations. So there are linkage. Each association has the core, hypothesis, and there are 2 variables that are moderating also, and moderating this particular relationship. So when anyone look at this model, he can conceptualize about my research work. So what is the term we can use here? Hello?
Conceptual framework.
Exactly. So this is conceptual framework. But in this conceptual framework, you see, I have a variable called security and privacy, perceived trust, perceived risk, website usability, and internet banking acceptance is my dependent variable. The perceived, security and privacy, I have conceptualized this variable or construct. I have some idea, but it is already previously available in the research, maybe, and there may be theories behind this. Some theories may talk about security and privacy. Some well-established model may have perceived trust, perceived risk, even website usability also there. Actually, for this research study, the perceived trust, perceived risk, security and privacy are already available variable. There are theories behind this variable. But what I did was I introduced this variable only as a new construct for this model. This is my novel thing. Website usability never been in the previous study. So this is my new additions or new construct for my research work. Website usability. There are variable like the convenience or something, the user convenience or user friendly or something is there, but not website usability. So this is my new additions. And see here, this construct or this variable may have link with previously available theories, model, or a framework. Yes.
So we can see the slide number 31. So results and finding. Is that you are referring the slides?
No. So I'm having different slide now.
We can see your results and
how about this?
Right. Okay, sir. Now fine. Research model.
Oh, so you didn't check this one also. I mean the survey questionnaire also. This slide you didn't see?
Yeah, I can see, sir. Survey questionnaire.
No, I'm asking from just now only you are looking this slide, no?
Yeah.
How about this one? When I describe all this aspect, you didn't see, no?
Yeah, no, we didn't see, sir.
Oh, sorry. So then I'll repeat it. So
Sure.
actually, this is my actual questionnaire. You see, I thought that you people are watching my screen. So sorry for that. Okay. See, this is my actual questionnaire. You see, here I have described my purpose and my conduct details for my survey. And the questionnaire is factors affecting consumer adoption in e-banking services in Sri Lanka. There, as I mentioned earlier, you see the section 1 basically collecting the respondent demographic profile, the basic informations like the gender, age category, their educations, monthly income, professions, and the respondent easily select the related or the appropriate options. In the second section, it collect the e-banking related aspect. So the responses here, the respondent can easily check or select their appropriate options. And I am measuring or scaling all these these responses in a 5-scale basis. 5 Likert scale basis. Strongly agree, disagree is second, neither agree or disagree is the third one, agree is the fourth one, fifth one is the disagree. And here I have a I have a variables to construct consumer intention to use e-banking services. Awareness is my second variable. Convenience is my third variable. Under each variable, there are set of questions or set of items. For each and every items, they have to select their appropriate options. Okay. This is how I have completed or composed my entire questionnaire. After this questionnaire, you see my research model. Here you can look at my research model. Like this research model consists 4 independent variable and 1 dependent variable and 2 moderating variables. And my independent and dependent variable are connected. I assume the hypothesis, my assumptions, and I put hypothesis. And at the same time, for 2 moderating variable, I have a moderating relationship also. And in addition to this one, I have one more hypothesis here. The positive risk is connected with the positive trust. And for this privacy, security and privacy, positive trust, and positive risk, already this construct or these variables are already connected with the previously available theories. And website usability is the new construct or new variable I have added with this research, and it is the highlight or it is a novel thing for my research work. Now, after when anyone look at this research model, he can get the basic idea about my research work. So this is a conceptual framework for a research model. Okay. And now I'm going to show you what is the next steps after finalizing all this aspect. And assume I have collected the data from my questionnaire, and now I'm going to analyze my data. So you all are familiar with this SPSS software to analyze this software. Basically, I used only the SPSS software to analyze this data set. Here, when you go to this SPSS, there you can, you all are familiar with this data editor view and output view. And there you can easily enter this data. So this is the actual data. and screenshot of this actual data. There, the variable names are there. All the variable, I mean, this question items are there, and you can have the variable name, the type of a variable, and the variable values, the missing value, how to read this missing value, and the measures, what sort of type of variable this one, whether it is a scale one, ordinal one, or a nominal one, you can select. And then, so this is how your the data view you can see for all your variable, the data is entered. So this is the respondents. The first number one is the first respondent, number two refers the second respondent, three refers the third respondent, likewise it goes. And the data editor, yeah, here the data editor or variable view, the data editor variable view. Here you can see some of the aspect like you can customize it based on your convenience, based on your research work. And I hope that you all are familiar with this window. And the coding or the values one, here you can check the values. Assume in your, let's say here, assume that my questionnaire, the gender, two options are there. So the male or female, age category, there are 6 options are there. So how to enter this value? So the first value should be for the gender, first value should be male, second value should be female. For age category, the first value should be 18 to 25. The second value should be 26 to 30. Likewise, you have to enter all the option for each questionnaire items. So there is option in SPSS. So here for each variable, when you click this value column, you will have a dialog box. There you can enter, you can add these values. So 0 refers male, 1 refers female, or 1 refers male, 2 refers female. Likewise, you can set the values. Like the age category, 1 refers the particular age category, 2 refers this particular age category. Likewise, you can set all these values for your variables. Assume you have properly set this, properly entered this data, and properly your data set is ready, and now you are going to do the analysis. Okay, so the basic analysis, I mean, for my demographic profile, the frequency table, there you can find the basic information about your demographic profile. There, the mean, mediations, mode, standard deviations, variance, skewness, curtices, range, all these values you can get, and from these values you can get some sort of idea about your data set, whether it is valid data set or any deviations are there, any outliers are there, or any, whether by looking this skewness and curtices values, you can decide whether your data set has normal distributed or skewed. You can have an idea about these values. And this is a basic statistic for your demographic profile. And frequency table you can generate for each variable. So for example, for the gender, so in my case, there are 186 respondents. Out of 186, 129 are male and 57 are female, and its percentage and valid percentage and cumulative percentage, everything you can find for each and every I mean variables, like gender, age category, education, profession, income. For each variable, I have created the frequency table. And for your research work also, I mean, for your dissertation work also, you can select, you can generate appropriate tables and chart, and it should be appropriate and meaningful, and you can generate any table and you can locate it in the appropriate chapters. This is the demographic profile I have presented in my paper, and later at the end I'll show the published paper also. And the demographic profile is presented in this way, and it's the variable, I mean, first variable and its frequencies and its percentage. Likewise for all demographic profile variable, the demographic profile information are presented. Descriptive statistics, like for each variable, it's a descriptive statistic. And cross step also you can generate. Let's say for cross step, the gender and the age category. So male category 27, those are coming. The age category 18 to 25. Under the 26 to 30 age category, there are 52 male respondent. under the 31 to 40 age category, there are 31 male respondents. Likewise, you can combine two variables and you can generate this cross step to get some sort of informative idea, some information, detailed information. For your variable, you can generate, you can run this cross step also. And you can generate different types of chart for your variables. And this has to be presented in the, what do you call this, appropriate chapters and pages. An histogram you can run for your variables to get whether your variable has a normally distributed. And scatter plot or dot plot, there you can see the association between the variables. So it also gives some sort of idea about your variables. So each variable, demographic variable, I have generated this scatter plot or dot plot. And compute variable. So basically the compute variable is here you see in my questionnaire here the first variable, there are five sub questions or items. Second variable, there are 5. So all these 5s are for this variable. All these 5 questions are accumulated. The computed one are for this variable. These all 5s are computed and for this variable. So there are methods to compute these variables. So compute variable. So you can calculate this compute variable options. When you go to this transform option, there is an option called a compute variable. There you can it will trigger a dialog box. There you can name your variables, and then you can select appropriate function, whether you are going to select sum or average or minimum, maximum. Likewise, there are statistical functions are there. You can select the functions, and then you can create a what do you call this, a compute variable for the targeted variable. The new variable. Say for example, let's say if a variable has a trust, positive trust has 5 questions, then the accumulated or summation of that 5 questions responses are converted into variable trust. Okay, actually, when you do this in a practical environment, you will understand better. Okay, the correlation analysis. Basically, the correlation analysis is to make sure if there is any correlations or relationship between the variables. So the correlation shows that the direction or strength of the one variable direction or a strength of the correlation with another or with other variables. See here the correlation tables for each variables. There you can see correlation between the variable. Let's say the trust and consumer internet intentions. So they are 0.590, 0.590, and this is the correlation is significant at the 1% levels. And you see for other rest of the variable also, its related correlations statistics are presented here. So basically, you can include this correlation table in your chapters, and you have to properly interpret how your variables are correlated with other variables. And for the interpretations, there are let's say this the Pearson correlation R value should be interpreted with the appropriate interpretations. And when you have a correlation value that is 0.9, between 0.9 to 1, it has the very high positive correlations. And if you have a negative value, let's say minus 0.93 or something, in between this minus range, it has the negative correlations. Likewise, based on the plus or minus sign, you can decide whether it is a positive correlation or a negative correlation in between these ranges. Okay, these all are you can easily find in the website. And if it is a positive correlations and large positive correlation, a very high positive correlation, it should be like this. And medium positive correlation, it should be like this. And weak correlation, it should be the data are scattered here and there. And small correlations, so it should be the data sets are scattered there. So you can generate this scattered plot also in the SPSS to prove the correlations. And this is also the scattered plot. You see for each variable how its correlation is shown here. Let's say the privacy and security, and let's say the risk, and see the correlations pattern, how these data patterns are organized or scattered. And you see, and when you look at this scattered plot, you can see which variable has the positive or the good correlation. Let's say in my case, this one is okay, somehow okay. This variable privacy and security and the trust has the good correlations. Here the trust and privacy and security, see the data points are somehow near to this line, and others are not that much have a positive and strong, not positive but not strong correlations. So this is also some additional description you can include in your research study. Okay, privacy and security and trust. You see privacy and security and risk, how the data sets are scattered here and there. These are some individual analysis. So see for this line, data points are somehow near, and here scattered here and there. And then the regression analysis, you can include the regression analysis also. When you conduct this regression analysis, you will get the descriptive statistic for this regression analysis, mean, standard deviation, and your sample statistics are there. And the regression table, there you will get this correlations, and each correlations, and variable entered. I mean, it will show you what are independent variable, what are dependent variable. There you see what is the method you have used for this regression analysis. And the regression, in the regression analysis, there are table, and the first table is the model summary table. And there you can find from your independent variables and the explain variance. So all these independent variable, how much it is going to explain the variance in your dependent variables. So R square value and adjusted R square value. So in my case, 47 points variance is explained my dependent variable by this 4 independent variables. So it shows the explained variance. In ANOVA table, there also you can find the ANOVA related statistic, and some of the F statistic values, significance, and the degree of freedom.
Doctor, excuse me, doctor.
Yes.
So we have arranged another session regarding SPSS.
Yeah.
The session will be, and
Yeah.
also time is now 5 minutes remains.
Okay, I'll wind up it. Only 2 minutes.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So the regression table, very important table, is the coefficient table. There you can find all your independent variables and it beta coefficient. And then here you see the T statistic values, very important one, and significant value. There you can which variable has much impact on your dependent variable. So in this case, the trust has the website usability has much impact because it has the beta coefficient value high, and the see the T statistic value also. It is strongly significant. Likewise, you can interpret your regression table also. And so likewise, all these statistics and findings are presented in a way. So the paper also published. So I'll share this one. I mean, can you see my? Okay, can you see my window?
Yes, sir. We have just seen, but now we can see your PowerPoint. Earlier we have seen your paper.
How about now?
No, sir. Okay, now we can. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
So this is the actual the published paper. I mean, so far I explained the steps and what are the steps involved in doing this research work. You see, so the introduction section, I'll abstract. Briefly, I explain all these. I mean, the important things here. Abstract, introductions, the research gap, significance, and the research questions and the contributions. Everything is explained. The theoretical framework here, the theoretical framework. So basically, as I mentioned earlier, it is in the literature review, section 2. So there you see the related. So in my case, the related for the variables, the related supportive points from the theories are explained here. And you see, I have explained, I have from the previous studies, I have extracted the similar kind of findings and presented here. And see here the related theories and supported theories for my model variables, research model and hypothesis. So this is the figure you have shown in that slide. And there you can see the number of what you call construct variables and hypotheses and relationship, everything. To support all these hypotheses, I have given the supportive points from the literature or else literature sources and the previous finding, whether this particular hypothesis or assumption is previously assumed or similar kind of findings that there. All are presented here. And instrument development. In the instrument development, you can see how I have collected data, what are my population sample research frame, sampling frame, and how I developed the questionnaire, where I have distributed my questionnaire, how I collected the data, and the coding, scaling, everything is presented in a way. And the demographic profile, as I shown you, the demographic profile of my research study, the data collection procedure, data analysis procedure, the measurement model, and the results and finding the presented, and the related tables, and its what do you call these captions, and see the figures with appropriate statistics, and these are located in appropriate locations. See the significant relationship, significant hypothesis are in a arrow, and insignificant relationship or hypothesis are in a dotted arrow, and see the path and the related statistic here, and assessment of my structured model for hypothesis testing and its relationship and path coefficient, p-value, whether it is supported or not supported, all the values. And see the discussion part. In the discussion part, I'm writing what I call whether my research is aligned with the previously available finding, or it is giving any new avenues or new novel things. So all are described here. The practical implications, so implication part, the practical implications, and limitation and future research avenue, and conclusion part, and some of the appendix and some of the statistic with my questionnaire, the construct, the model, the model variables, and its questionnaire items, and the sources, and some other related appendix in the what do you call these references also. See, this is how you can you can compose your you can organize your dissertation or a thesis work. And also, if you are supervisors, or if you are really interested to publish any research papers, you can follow the similar steps and similar consideration to organize your research work. Okay, with that, thank you so much for your participation, and I hope that I gave my level best to write up your thesis work. I hope that you at least you got a few things in your mind, and I hope that it will helpful for your research work and dissertation writing. If you have any problem or any doubt or anything, I'm available. So you may contact, you can meet me. So then I can help from my side. Okay. With that note, thank you so much for your valuable participation. And also, I would like to express my sincere thanks and thanks for the coordinator, Dr. Riyad, for giving this valuable opportunity to conduct this session to our final year students. And this is a series of sessions. So among this series of sessions, I also got the opportunity to discuss some of the aspects with our students. So I'm really happy that I also part of this series of session, and I did my level West. So thank you so much for your unit. I mean the Research and Innovation Cell, the faculty board, and the coordinator for giving this nice opportunity. Thank you.
Dr. Ilmuddin, so we have enjoyed, we have learned a lot of things. So even though we have published more articles and I have learned a lot of new things, a lot of insights. So definitely students get benefit out of your 2 hours valuable time. So I know that you are still at the university premises. So for the betterment of our students and the faculty, we have contributed and sacrificed more, and we have shared your knowledge well. So Alhamdulillah, so we are proud of you, proud of having you in our faculty member. So thank you very much, Dr. Ilmuddin. We expect your continuous support, your support to our faculty for the betterment of research. So any questions from student sides we can ask, otherwise we can wind up.
Yes, I forgot to show the slide. This is the time for your question and answer. If you have any queries, any questions, you may clarify now.
The students, any questions? Dr. Ilmuddin is available in our faculty anytime. So in office days, office time. So you can meet him and you can ask, he's available. So with that note, we will end up the meeting. Thank you very much for your participation, dear my students. And Dr. Ilmuddin, I express my sincere thanks you again. Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks for all the participants. See you then. Take care.
Welcome. Good night.